Hi, my name is Katie Kataska, and I am the chair of the Professional Development Committee of the New Jersey State Library Association. In the Library Career Path series, we'll be interviewing librarians from a wide variety of positions within the field, from public positions to music outreach and even business librarians. So newcomers and seasoned librarians alike can learn more about the many career options available in the field that they may not have been aware of. We hope you enjoy these interviews, and please like and subscribe to our channel below to help promote the Library Career Path series. Thanks so much for watching this series. We hope you enjoy it. Take care. All right, David, thanks for meeting us today on the Library Career Path series. It's really nice joining you, and I enjoyed our talk prior to our hitting record here.
So did
Okay,
I.
so yeah, so just to go ahead and get started, can you please give us your name, title, and current place of employment?
Okay. So hello, Katie, and thank you again for inviting me to this talk. And my name is David Perez. I am the library social worker at the Long Branch Free Public Library. I started here as an intern, a Monmouth University intern back in 2015. And upon graduation, 2017, I had to do 2 years of grad school because my undergrad is in business. And so once upon graduation, I was then offered a full-time position here as a social worker. And at that time, I became the very first social worker hired directly as a full-time employee directly by a public library in the state of New Jersey. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
at the time, there was no playbook for us here. No one really knew how to do this. My director and I, Tanya Garcia, who is still our director, we sort of built this thing
Mm-hmm.
as we went. I have to say that library social work is not unique to New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Actually began in 2009 in San Francisco at the San Francisco Public Library with my colleague who is still there, Leah Esquera. So Leah is actually the very first library social worker in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and library social work is unique to the United States. So this whole entire social innovation began in San Francisco and has grown tremendously since then. Not as much as I would like to see, but here in New Jersey, we now have library social workers in Newark, Jersey City, Hoboken, um, Elizabeth, Montclair,
Mm-hmm.
Westfield, South Brunswick, and Atlantic City. And then, of course,
Okay.
Long Branch. So we actually meet those social workers I mentioned. We actually meet every month and we discuss certain things and we sort of share best practice techniques. We sort of support each other as we sort of mentor each other,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice. But yeah, so that is who I am.
No, that's really cool. And like I mentioned earlier, you have a very unique position in libraries and social work. I know that that partnership is sort of very new to the library system. So that's really cool. Okay, and to go into our next question, which I'm sure we'll get into your other degree that you mentioned, but what inspired you to get your master's in social work?
So this is actually a great question because this question proves that negatives can turn into positives.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely learned that with this experience. So the Great Recession, 0809. Social work is my third career. I was in
Mm-hmm.
the Army for 10 years. When I came back home, I used my GI Bill to get my bachelor's in business and healthcare management. So I was in healthcare business for about 15
Okay.
years until 08, 09, the Great Recession, housing market crashed. Many companies folded, Lehman Brothers, AIG, a lot of things happening, a lot of movement, a lot of people losing their jobs. And so I was working for St. Barnabas Healthcare System at the time,
Mm-hmm.
which today is RWJ Barnabas.
Mm-hmm.
And so St. Barnabas, I worked in the business office. So the business office did all of the business aspect for the six acute care hospitals of St. Barnabas and over 100 business units. So
Mm-hmm.
St. Barnabas had six acute care hospitals, and they had a bunch of outpatient centers and all that sort of thing throughout the state. The largest healthcare system in New Jersey at the time, and still is with the RWJ merger. But they outsourced the business office, and we were like 200 plus employees in this huge warehouse type of business office in
Mm-hmm.
Oceanport. And they outsourced the business office to consultants who came in with new technology. They fired all the management.
Oh.
And at the time, I was not a manager, I was supervising
Mm-hmm.
20 people. I had to re-interview for my position, which was interesting. And I got my job, I kept my job, but it didn't take long for that for me to sort of be in the radar as far as like, someone they wanted to get rid of because I had a mentality that was not like theirs. And so, I think it was like 2010, 2011 is when I
Mm-hmm.
lost my job and I was unemployed for the first time in my life. So,
Yeah.
first time in my life went to unemployment. Now, this was devastating because we had
Mm-hmm.
mortgage that was fairly new. We had kids going to college. We had all the bills that any family has. Between me and my wife, we raised 7 children. So yours,
Wow.
mine's, and ours.
Yeah.
So even though uh, I had 3 stepchildren, it didn't matter because we were all within the same family unit,
Right.
and everyone required energy and
Mm-hmm.
financing, all that sort of thing. So this was devastating. So I
Yeah.
went to unemployment for the first time in my life, and of course, one of the first questions is, "Are you a veteran?" So I'm like, "Yeah," and then immediately I was connected with a veterans counselor who helped me to understand the veterans or the VA benefits that I had, which I had never really taken the time to understand. And so this is really like this story. You can't make this up. So I had a service connected injury to
Mm-hmm.
my right knee. Like I
Okay.
destroyed my right knee when I was active duty. I destroyed it like over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so during this time of unemployment, um, his name is Victor Alvarado. He was like, Dave, like you have this active duty related injury, like you can go to the VA hospital and they can address it and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So I'm like, okay, so I had a lot of time because I was unemployed. So I'm like, all right. So anyway, make a long story short, the VA ended up reconstructing my right knee.
Mm-hmm.
After that procedure, I then became a quote unquote disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
So after this, I'm only 10% disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
The 10% was a qualifier for an additional educational benefit, which I had no idea.
Oh, interesting.
I had used my GI Bill, so I thought I was done.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, okay, so now that you're a disabled veteran, you
Mm-hmm.
qualify for this additional benefit and we can pay for you to get your master's. And I was like,
Hmm.
what? I was like,
Interesting.
really? I was 43 years old at the time. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you can get, and I'm like, oh my God, is that what I want to do? Like, do I have to do
Mm-hmm.
that? I wasn't sure. Like, it's been a long, like I started college, Katie. When I
Yeah.
graduated, I was born and raised in the Bronx, by the way. So I'm really from New York. Um, but I started college at Nyack
Okay.
in 1989. I was 17 years old. So the thought of going to college in
Mm-hmm.
2015 was like
Yeah.
overwhelming. So I'm like, what? But
It's a long
anyway,
time.
I did it. I applied. They said, listen, you apply, you can go to Rutgers, you can go to Monmouth
Mm-hmm.
University because you live in Long Branch. You go to, I was like, really, Monmouth? Because I know Monmouth is private, Monmouth is expensive.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we pay 100%. I was like, what?
Oh, that's really
In books,
nice.
we'll pay for a computer, we'll pay for.
Oh,
So I
man.
was like, man. So
That's a
I
good deal.
applied. Yeah, I applied and I was accepted into the social work program. And the reason why I selected social work, and trust me, I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. But I was going according to the advice of the veterans counselor at unemployment, because he was saying to me, hey, Dave, this is like a rapidly growing field.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd be great. So he sort of talked me into it. And I knew that I didn't want to continue with business because I had a bad taste in my mouth of what happened.
Yeah, yeah.
They literally tapped my shoulder and said, today's your last day. And I
Oh,
turned around and there's a
yeah.
security guard there
Mm-hmm.
waiting to pack everything into a box and escort me
Mm-hmm.
outside, which was crazy. And I was there, like I said, over 15 years I have in healthcare business.
Yeah.
So I selected social work, and then I had to immediately I had no idea what I was doing, I'll tell you the truth. But according to the grad program, you have to have an active internship from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
which I thought was a great idea. So then, I remember the day, I was on an interview, trying to place me somewhere because they figure, okay, you come from healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
military, so maybe the VA or maybe like some sort of skilled nursing facility as an intern. But none of those options were open. And then she says, well, what about the Long Branch Free Public Library? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Like, how in the world is any of this even equal library? And she's like, well,
You'd
you
be
know what?
surprised.
Yeah, I know. She was like, well, you know what? They reached out to us here at Monmouth and they were wondering if they can have a social work intern. And we think you would be great. You have a lot of life experience. We're looking to, if we send someone, we're looking to send someone who is more mature, than the average grad school student. And so maybe, you'd be a good fit, So I was like, all right. She says, you know what? Why don't you go interview and you don't like it? We'll keep on looking. So I
Mm-hmm.
come in here, that's when I met Tanya for the first time. And she explains to me what was her intention: to connect with the community, to invite social service agencies into the library, to present programming, to provide like resource fairs here in the library, to make it easier for the community to access social services and all that. And I was like, wow, like it just sounded fascinating to me. And I was like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? Yeah, this is what I want to do, because I never intended to be a clinical social worker.
Right.
That was never my intention. Like I never intended to like, conduct psychotherapy and that sort of thing. I wanted to be what social work calls a macro social worker,
Mm-hmm.
which is more like systemic engagement, and that
Right.
sort of thing would intersect with like public policy, even political science, even intersects with a lot, public health. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking more of a macro level. So what she
Right.
was saying to me, which again, I really didn't understand, but it just sounded like what I wanted to do. And that's when I began interning here at the library, and I've been here ever since.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess when the job came at uh Long Branch to make it official, was there something like specific about working there that made you want to continue working in a library?
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you for this question. So, as an intern, I spent 2 years here as an intern, which is rare
Right.
because what schools of social work would prefer is that you spend one academic year in a certain practicum placement. And then if you're doing 2 years, if you're advanced standing and you have
Mm-hmm.
undergrad in social work, you could be advanced standing and get the master's done in 1 year. So that would just be a 1 year placement for that person. But like I said, I had a business undergrad, so you have to do 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they prefer, in that scenario, they prefer you have a practicum in one placement in the first year, and then get a different experience in the second year. But because in the first year I was able to successfully champion a program called Fade to Books.
Mm-hmm.
Fade to Books is a barbershop literacy program. And
Oh.
this was not, I can't take the credit for the idea. It was my director's idea. She called me to the office one day and said, David, what do you think about if we put books into barbershops? And
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, like that's a great idea, because, like barbershops, these are like de facto like social clubs, or even
Mm-hmm.
the community gathering places too. I mean, you have grandfathers, uncles, fathers, cousins, you
Mm-hmm.
you know, children under 12, you have teenagers, you have, you know, middle age, you have single moms with who have to bring their daughters there too, because there's no one to watch, because you take me to Sunday
Right.
park, you know, you have a lot of conversation in these barbershops,
Mm-hmm.
sports, politics, what happened, who's barbecue, who won the high school, football game, like a lot going on. And so when she said that, I was like, yeah, if we put books, small libraries into barbershops, like that might impact the literacy level of young boys of color. So we have
Mm-hmm.
a specific target audience, according to research, young boys of color,
Mm-hmm.
black and brown.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, that population had staggeringly low literacy levels. And so what we wanted to do was strategically choose 5 barbershops in Long Branch who were like, were like the most popular barbershops, Black, Latino. I wanted to keep the diversity. So I engaged with Frank, the barber, who's Italian. And, because I knew that he had like
Mm-hmm.
he had a diverse clientele. I didn't want it to just be Black or Latino.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what we did was we put books and we met with the barbers and everyone was in agreement and it was a great idea and they were all about it. Let's give back to the kids, let's give back to the
Mm-hmm.
community. There was an incentive after every 10 books read, they would offer a free haircut, right?
Hmm.
So the state librarian at the time, Mary Shute, she
Mm-hmm.
caught wind of what we were doing here at Long Branch, and she requested to come and tour the Fade to
Hmm.
Books program. And we actually went to East Barbershop with her, and she was
Oh.
impressed that she took the idea back to Trenton and she met with, Department of Labor, Department of
Mm-hmm.
Education, what have you. And she decided that she wanted to adopt the program
Hmm.
as a pilot program and offer a small grant to libraries throughout the state of New Jersey to start
Hmm.
their own Fade to Books barbershop literacy program.
That's
This was
really
back,
cool.
yeah, and this was back in 2016-ish.
Hmm.
So when I graduated so after my first academic year, I was like, this was just getting off the ground.
Hmm.
And I was like, please let me stay at the library because this thing is awesome. It's like an innovation. Everyone is loving it. It's going statewide. If I leave
Yeah.
now, and you know how this is, the interns
Hmm.
leave and what they built or what they worked on sort of fizzles away.
Stops.
So I'm like, we can't let this die. This is too. So anyway, they approved it. I needed special approval, and they approved
Hmm.
stay here. So I stayed 2 years here, and that's the reason why I decided to stay, because of the outcomes of the Fade to Books barbershop literacy program.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It sounds like a great program. Are they books that they can check out, or were they like don't were they actually in the barber shop, or did they have to go to the library to get them?
They were actually in the barbershops.
Okay.
They did not have to check them out the way we do here, like a circulate. There was like not a circulation process with the barbers, but they didn't have time for that.
Yeah, I figured it would probably be donated
Yeah.
books
Yeah, they were
or
right.
books they
Okay, thank you.
purchased.
Oh my God, thank you. So part of the collaboration was a collaboration with a book foundation called Bridge to Books Foundation.
Okay.
And that was at the advice of Monmouth University, who sort of gave me that lead. I reached out to them. Hi, my name is David. I'm a library social work intern. And, Monmouth University suggested I contact you. Well, this foundation was so excited about it. They actually donated 1,000
Oh my
gently used,
gosh.
yeah, gently used slash new
Hmm.
children's books. So thank you for reminding me about this because our target
Hmm.
population was the ages between 4 and 12. So
Okay.
these are children's books. So they donated 1,000. So amongst the 5 shops, we divided it 250 books per shop. And that's how we did this. We allowed the barbers to select the shelving that they wanted. So we just
Hmm.
kind of gave them like a Demco, a Brodart catalog, and
Hmm.
just pick whichever one you like for your barbershop. And we covered that expense here at the library. Um, and so we bought them the shelving and things like that. But that's actually how it started with the books. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I could see why that would really endear you to wanting to stay because you created such a great program and you wanted to see it still be continued. No, that's really great. So I know this may be going back a little bit of ways, but so after that process, since you became then full time at Long Branch, as far as I'm understanding, can you describe how your interview process was, if you remember? I know it might have been a while.
No, I do. It was me sitting with Tanya and her telling me about all the different things she wanted to do. And I just got totally excited about it. And it was a very quick yes. And, like they weren't paying me. So it wasn't something that she had to go
Yeah.
to the board and get approved. It's an easy decision, for libraries, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
because you're not paying the social work intern. You are investing some time because, there are some
Hmm.
logistics involved, like an evaluation and that sort of thing involved at the end of every semester. but it really doesn't take much. You're giving back, to the student. You're sort of, it's a great collaboration with libraries and universities, to host these interns. But yeah, I mean, it was a quick interview, and it was kind of like jump right in.
Oh no, that's great. So yeah, I'm glad they hired you on so you can continue your program and everything. That sounds really cool. So then I guess switching gears a little bit. So is there an asset which you possess may have helped you land that position, or otherwise did you feel that the everything they'd known about you all before helped you to continue this position?
I think that the fact that I had a lot of life experience at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, I was 43 years old, a family man,
Mm-hmm.
military soldier man, a businessman, a supervising, 21 people, so I was coming in with a lot of experience, a lot of experience, personal experience, organizational experience, a lot of personal confidence, you know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
public speaking and, skills. I've never had a problem. I'm not intimidated by people or their offices or their ranks or their titles or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very confident, in what I do. I do have to, I do owe that to the military because, you know, uh, I was taught how to be a leader,
Mm-hmm.
and how to organize and how to sort of,
Right.
respectful and customary and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that the person who I
Mm-hmm.
was able to, you know, I'm not gonna say easy, but it was definitely easier,
Yeah,
to
it helped.
learn it. It certainly did help, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question we have is I'm looking forward to hearing what your day is about, but what is a typical work day like for you? Not that any day is typical of the library.
That's interesting that you ask, because
Yeah,
there is a book. You know what? Can you give me 1 second? I want to show something to you.
yeah, go ahead.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
So two things. I want to show you two things. This is the first one. This is the
I
logo
love it.
for the Fade to Books program.
Yeah.
So we gave one of these to each of the barbers, and they put this in their windows.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So that's that. And then to answer your question, what is a day in my life? Okay. So I answered this question back in 2018, to the point where there's a social work textbook. Not really a textbook. I mean, it's used in sort of like the intro to social work classes in universities around the country. It's called Days in the Lives of Social Workers.
Okay.
It's a culmination of real accounts of real people who work, like in the hospital, social work in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
work at the school, social work at the child protective services, social work. So they were looking for unique, stories about new venues for social work, and Monmouth University again tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, listen, this editor is looking for some content, and we think library social work would be great." So
Mm-hmm.
I submitted my proposal, and they accepted it, and they actually published it in the fifth
Oh, that's
edition
cool.
of the Days in the Lives of Social Workers. This was the very first publication of its kind back in, and you see that,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, back in I think this was 2018 was when she published it. Um, and it talked about what it was like for me back then, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously changes because we, even as libraries, we understand that community needs change throughout the
Mm-hmm.
years. I mean, from then until now, we had a pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
the whole entire world changed, and the
Lots has
world,
changed.
right, and the world is rapidly changing today, even with a bunch of things happening. So, um, a typical day for me is, I like to operate by appointment because that enables me to plan my day out, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, um, if a person walks in, like I got a call while you and I were
Mm-hmm.
talking from circulation, and there was a person who walked into the library and was requesting to meet with me. Sometimes people hear about, me or the fact that there's a social worker here, they hear it word of mouth. Sometimes they're referred by other organizations, just like the other
Mm-hmm.
client that I told you about. Sometimes they're just simply brought to me by Long Branch Police Department because
Mm-hmm.
maybe, there's maybe a domestic violence situation, a homelessness situation. I will never turn anyone away if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not if I'm not engaged in a meeting or if I'm not engaged with someone. So my door is open all the time. I encourage the appointments, but my door is open. So
Right.
I'm going to tell you that, I've engaged with a wide spectrum of societal issues. I mean, I'm just going to shoot from the hip. I'm going to say food insecurities,
Mm-hmm.
health insecurity, employment, unemployment, immigration issues, like asylum and that sort of thing, citizenship issues, um, domestic violence. I even had a human trafficking case come,
Mm.
which was very interesting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Substance abuse, alcoholism, living with disabilities, autism, how can I find programs for my child? I want to advocate for my child. Um, you know, all sorts of different things. Everything that is impacting our society, as you well know, Katie, comes through
Mm-hmm.
the public library.
Yeah.
We will find everything and anything. And many times in public libraries, we're like, well, wait a minute, am I supposed to administer Narcan right now to this person who's
Yeah.
who's like seizing on the ground and I'm not sure what to
Mhm.
do? And actually, there's actually, I don't know if you know this, Katie, but there's a New Jersey law that
Mhm.
says now that every public library should have Narcan.
Yeah, we have it at our library. It's
Right.
just it's now a state law.
Right. Which is so interesting, right? So that, it is the public library. And so when people hear the word library, they think about books and studying and that sort of thing, but it is so much more than books and
Yeah.
study.
Yeah, it's definitely become both, I think, like half a community center, half a place that houses books and resources.
Right.
So I think we went over this a little bit, but what do you feel that what skills and qualifications are required for your position? And do you feel they match the skills and qualifications that you use most on a daily basis?
Yeah. So, obviously social work, right? Social work skills. Although I graduated, and although I have a master's degree in social work and I have a bachelor's degree in business, all that's great. But you really learn how to use all
Mhm.
that once you get into the field. And so, yeah, I mean, I could say about business, yeah, I spent over 15 years and that sort of thing. Great. Social work, like in the beginning, like, yeah, I had imposter syndrome 100% because I'm like, am I really doing social work here? Like, is this really social work? I'm in the
Yeah.
library, it's interesting. But now that I'm almost 10 years into this career of library social work, now I understand that I have developed skills. This My credentials or my education, stands as the foundation of what this is. However, I've learned as time has gone by how to do this in the library to the point that about a year ago, a light bulb went off and I was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, David, you don't have library social work without the
Hmm.
library. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? So what I decided was that I decided to pursue my library degree.
Hmm.
And why did I do that? Because I want to fully understand libraries so that I can bring this library social work career to the fullest level
Hmm.
that I could possibly do. And I want to pass it on to someone else, right? Because I'm 53 now, right?
Okay.
So, how much time do I have? You know what I mean? Like I'm looking to usher in the next generation.
Hmm.
And so, yes, I already have 12, I'm 12 credits into my MLIS degree, and I am looking forward to completing it, maybe within the next 2 years. And I think that once I get there, then I think that I am the most equipped to do
Hmm.
this job that I'm doing. But yeah, for sure, social work for sure. and people skills and compassion, empathy, all that sort of thing, public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
being able to articulate, and that sort of thing. And leadership skills is another one because I do have like a manager's title here.
Yeah.
So I'm a social work manager here. So I will supervise social work interns here at the library as well. In addition to that, I also work for Rutgers School of Social Work, where I'm a practicum instructor for
Mm-hmm.
work interns in other libraries throughout New Jersey, as well as other venues, not just libraries. So
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like, all of that combined empowers me to do what I do here on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. The leadership, and also I think it's great that you're exploring getting your library degree because I think that will help you further your career to understand from our side of things.
Right,
But that
exactly.
makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Okay, and this is one of my favorite questions. So what in your opinion is the best thing about your job, and what is your least favorite thing?
So the best thing about my job, and I actually said this yesterday, these words actually came out of my mouth. I
So it's
quote,
pretty still fresh.
yeah, it's fresh, quote unquote. This is what I love the most about my job, is what I
Hmm.
said yesterday to my director, Tanya Garcia. And that was being successful in working with a brand new patron slash client, who came to what today's Thursday, Wednesday. Let me see,
Thursday.
Wednesday, Tuesday. I met this person on Tuesday, out of the blue, was referred to me from another organization in Long Branch, and extreme need, experiencing homelessness, substance abuse, mental health, all of that. Um, I was able to successfully, with him, obviously, because it takes
Hmm.
self-determination from the person. It's not just what we do here. It's whatever they do with whatever we hand them or suggest that they do. Together, we were able to, within 48 hours,
Hmm.
get that person into a bed in a rehab, which
Hmm.
is an inpatient facility, which is not an easy task. It's
No.
not, because the beds are not always open,
Hmm.
especially when it's cold out.
Yeah, especially.
So we got him into the bed. We got him screened over the phone. We
Hmm.
got him cleared, with his medical insurance. We got it
Hmm.
all done here in my office at the library.
Hmm.
Sent the car to the library because he had no address.
Hmm.
Um, they were communicating with me on my
Right.
office phone because he had no phone.
Mhm.
And we were able to, within 48 hours, get this person successfully into an inpatient program, which is going to be for at least 30 days, which
Yeah.
has the potential to change his whole entire life.
Yeah.
He's going to have a warm place to sleep, food, clothing, case management,
Hmm.
medical attention, mental health attention, all of that. And I believe that if everything goes well, this person's life can really change. That is what I love the most about my job, when we have outcomes like that.
No, that's really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I can look at myself in the mirror and say, Dave, you're actually doing something in this world. It's not
Hmm.
just, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
I think the least is when like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe
You
not
always
that.
have the sad stories.
Right. Yeah, because it doesn't always work. you
Yeah.
know, and I would love to be able to say to people, oh yeah, like we're gonna fix it. But one thing that I got used to saying is like, listen, I'm not the Wizard of Oz. I can't simply grant you everything that you wish.
Hmm.
And as much as I would love to,
Yeah.
because it is the best part of my job to see it all work out. But what we do here is reliant on other organizations,
Hmm.
whether it be, the Monmouth County Division of Social Services, or whether it be, such and such rehab place, or such and such, housing, authority, because, people are looking for affordable housing and that sort of thing. And they're dealing with different issues. And, you know, I can only attempt to help reach out to the person and make the connection, that sort of thing. But the other end of it needs to sort of fulfill their requirements in order for it to work. And sometimes it doesn't happen, because
Yeah.
in many cases, we do have sort of some fractures in our system, to be totally honest with you.
Hmm.
Wish that it was 100%, but I can't say that it is. So yeah, so I think that's what I like the least about what I do is what it
Yeah,
doesn't.
I think we all face that in our professions. We always want the nice story to help the patrons, but we don't always get there. And it is a part of our jobs.
Right.
Yeah. So going to the next question, if you don't feel comfortable answering this, feel free to let me know. But does your current job meet your salary expectations? And are there any opportunities for growth in your position? I know you're seeking out your library degree, which is fantastic. We're not expecting a number. We're sort of wanting to know, are you comfortable in this position?
I'm going to say yes.
Hmm.
And I'm going to say that the only reason why, or the only reason how I can say yes is because I have a director who is constantly advocating for me.
Hmm.
So this is very important, and I would be remiss if I didn't emphasize the fact that this doesn't work without the support of the library director. This doesn't work. Slash board of trustees. This doesn't work.
Right.
It could be a great idea to so many, but if you have a person who does not share the vision with you,
Hmm.
that person's not going to advocate for you. And my director is constantly advocating for me, constantly advocating for me. And my salary has increased substantially, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
I started, and she wasn't sure where to start. She sort of
Right.
was like, all right, well, let's start here. And I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, I'm unemployed. I've been unemployed for X
Yeah.
amount of time, so I'm very happy to take that.
Hmm.
Um, since then, we've jumped. And I can say the number because it's public knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Right now
Hmm.
I'm at 69.5. And would I like it to be more? Sure, I would love for it to be six digits.
Don't we all?
But it is a nice average salary for a social worker, which is
Hmm.
comparable to like a school teacher, and it has increased every year.
That's good.
Um, and so, I'm going to say that I'm comfortable with it, within the capacity of what I do here. I am, like you said, I am seeking an additional degree, which is my library degree. And with that, I intend for something else to happen, on a sort of
Hmm.
like a macro level, but I don't want to leave library social work. I
Right.
just want to sort of work on a macro level, if you
Hmm.
will. And I'm not sure what that even looks like because we've been writing
Yeah.
the book ever since we started in 2015. So maybe we
Yeah.
have to write another chapter. I don't know.
But yeah, I guess you'll figure it out as that goes. Since
Right.
yeah, this is sort of a new position for social workers to work in a library. And I know when I was a kid, that definitely wasn't a thing. And libraries have been changing so much since I was a kid. Like we had card catalogs when I was a kid.
Yeah,
So
me too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I'm always interested to see where we go as a field.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you answer this since you didn't come into obviously like this career to work in a library, but what advice do you have for those considering working at a library?
So, first of all, it's important to understand, the place in which you are practicing social work, which is the free public library or the public library, or however way your library is titled. But it's the public library. And
Hmm.
to understand that first, try to understand that first, because we don't want to be social workers who are working in a library.
Hmm.
We want to be library social workers. Like we want to be library staffers who
Hmm.
are working in harmony, with library strategic plans, with library code of conduct, with library
Hmm.
policy, right? We want to
Right.
understand the idea of neutrality, right? We
Hmm.
want to understand the idea of book bans, right? We want to understand
Yeah.
censoring. We want to understand, why do we not want to censor? Why do we not
Right.
censor?
You want to
What
be
is
involved.
right? So
Hmm.
understand the library's mentality, and ALA has a code of conduct. I mean, I'm sorry, code of ethics that is very similar to what we have in social work, which is the NASW, the National Association of Social Workers, the NASW code of ethics. And if you were to place them side by side, you're going to find a lot of similarities between ALA and NASW. So we share values. We share values, and it's important to understand where you're practicing social work. It's important to take some time, make an effort to understand librarianship, and
Mm-hmm.
why librarians do what they do, and sort of, share, instead of being, antisocial and sort of like
Mm-hmm.
in the stacks in a corner somewhere, all quiet and to yourself, you know, mix and mingle, with the
Mm-hmm.
library, that you can become one with the library. I think it's important.
I know you said this field has grown since now there's opportunities like there's one at Montclair and I know you mentioned a couple others. What do the job prospects look like for this type of position? Do you feel that there'll be more social workers in every library soon, or how is that going?
I feel that there is a possibility that there will be more, but it is absolutely contingent upon the vision or the strategic plan of that particular library, slash library director slash board of trustees.
Mm-hmm.
So it matters. It matters
Yeah.
what is it that they're trying to do. Because although we're all public libraries, we don't all operate the same way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And our demographics can change, especially in New Jersey, right?
Right.
New Jersey is a place where you can go from, from South Jersey to, you know, to North Jersey, or you can go up to, like, practically close to the Poconos, or like Netcong and that, I don't remember well, you can go to Passaic. You can go from
Yeah.
Passaic to Cumberland, and you got a whole bunch of in between. You have mountainous, you have, Jersey Shore, you have the Pinelands, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you have so much, you have, farms out west, right? So you have like
Yeah.
rural, we have such a, you could have like, Hudson County. You could have like, you're staring at Manhattan, from Hoboken, or from Jersey City, yeah, and you almost feel like you're in New York. So it's like, or if you go South Jersey,
Right.
you're an Eagles fan, and if you go to North Jersey, you're a Giants fan. So it's like, you know, so diverse within New Jersey that, it does speak to the various demographics throughout the state. And just because we are in the same state doesn't mean that what works for Long Branch is going to work for Middletown. It's going to be
Right.
different, or Red Bank, or Asbury Park, or whatever, Newark.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense because I actually went to Montclair and then I worked in Ocean County at Lakewood, and what works for Lakewood won't necessarily work for Montclair. Yeah, no, that
Absolutely.
that
I
does
lived in
make
Lakewood for
sense.
3 years, so I get it.
Yeah, it's a very different demographic.
It is.
Hmm. So I'm curious to your answer to this. I know we talked about this a little bit, but what has been your biggest challenge in this profession?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, well, I've been challenged in so many different ways, but the pandemic was absolutely challenging for all
Hmm.
of us. That pops into my head because, how do I do library social work when I can't engage
Right.
with people, when we're shut down? At least we could still, the library, as far as circulation, we could still do a curbside, or we could still do it, whatever. But I can't engage virtually with clients, because my
Right.
clients who are seeking social work or library social work, are disenfranchised. These are people who are, in hardship. And these are
Right.
not, they don't have, an iPhone at the ready, for a FaceTime,
Hmm.
or a laptop. Or, I mean, as a matter of fact, we even worked with a local member of the community who was an IT guy, and he would refurbish computers that, companies would disregard. You
Hmm.
know, how they just, oh, we're getting an upgrade.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
100 computers. Let's say, who cares about them? We don't care.
Hmm.
He would refurbish them, and he would donate them here, and then
Oh, that's really nice.
I would find
Hmm.
families, and then we would give families these perfectly fine computers and laptops.
Hmm.
So what I'm saying is that was one of the challenges, for sure, is just going virtual, and during the pandemic, and not being able to engage with humans. This is a very human-based profession. It's all
Hmm.
about humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Okay, David, this has been great so far, and our last questions are for today. I'm curious how you answer this because I know you've had a very wide and varied career. So, are there any accomplishments during your career so far, besides the obvious awesome book fade program, that you are particularly proud of? You can mention the book fade again if you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, the Fade to Books barbershop literacy program will always be, one of those. Um, I'm gonna say, and you're saying my whole entire life, right?
Yeah. Like during your career, like whether it's in when you joined the library or from when you became a social worker on, I'm just curious, like, what have you been most proud of?
I'm gonna
Or it could
have
be
to,
from your time in the military.
oh, there you go. I'm gonna have to say that it was absolutely my time in the military.
Hmm.
When I graduated from basic training in 1993, it was like my life has never been the same. And
Hmm.
that ripple effect, it continues. It continues.
Hmm.
I swear, and I'm so thankful for it because that enabled me, my self-confidence to skyrocket. And like, because of we had to negotiate so many obstacles, and I didn't think that I could even do any of them. And just the fact that I was able to actually, you know, pass them and everything, and even just getting my master's degree, I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it,
Hmm.
and everything. And so, I'm gonna say that when we put our minds, when we decide to do something in our brain, and then it reaches our heart, so we start thinking, yeah, I think I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do it. But once it reaches our heart, and then now it's something that's
Hmm.
like really inside, and then you just go for it, go for it. You will be surprised at what you can accomplish as a human. Granted, we're not superhuman, but we
Hmm.
have the ability to accomplish a lot. And some people say,
Hmm.
Dave, I don't even know how you do this. How do you deal with, engage with these people and then go home, and like, how do you turn it off? How do you, well, please don't forget about self-care,
Hmm.
because that's so important, that you take a break, that you take a vacation, that you take a weekend trip, go into the woods, go to the beach, just sort of, just meditate, just get rid of all that, get rid of all that. It's
Hmm.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can fix it all, but my children,
Hmm.
there's so many things throughout my life, just raising I have a daughter who was able to, complete her doctorate in
Oh,
occupational
wow.
therapy. It's like, how did all of this happen? I told you before, I was born and raised in the Bronx. I was born in
Hmm.
South Bronx,
Yeah.
Puerto Rican from the South Bronx, 1972, when the Bronx was on fire.
Hmm.
If you Google that, the Bronx 1972, I think the first thing that's gonna come up is like buildings on fire or just burnt down and abandoned and
Hmm.
rubble. It looked like a war zone. It
Hmm.
was crazy. And I was born into this. I was born into
Hmm.
pop, moved from the South to the North Bronx, which was a whole lot better. And then we eventually moved into Jersey, et cetera, et cetera. But I could have been a part of a statistic that said this person is not going anywhere.
Hmm.
This person is going to die in the street. This person is going to be a drug addict, a drug dealer.
Hmm.
But I made it my business to not be that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we can do whatever we set our minds to do, we can absolutely do. And we're doing it here at the library every single day.
Hmm. That's really good to hear. Yeah. And sometimes you don't know where life takes you also, which I think like it's definitely clear how your life in how your career in the military could even affect your career here because it
Yeah.
gives you that confidence and knowing what you're capable of. So I'm definitely happy you shared your story. And thank you so much for today for hanging out with us and letting us know your story. I'm just curious, is that Fade to Books program, is that still ongoing?
It is, believe it or not.
Mm.
It is not as active as it was when, at the inception.
Mm.
But I do pass by the barbershops and stuff like that. Occasionally, I'll still see the signs on the window, and they still have books. Sometimes they'll call me and they want to refresh their
Mm.
books. I'm happy to do
Right.
that. So yeah.
No, that's really great. Yeah, before we end today, is there anything else you wanted to share? But no, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Likewise, Katie, I just want to say that, I appreciate you. And I appreciate, you taking time to meet with people and to listen to their stories. I think it's important that other people hear other people's stories,
Hmm.
as, it may inspire someone. Who knows what this is going to do for anyone or any library out there.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I agree.
And then ultimately, if anyone ever has anything that they want to discuss and reach out to me, you can find me on the Long Branch Free Public Library website, of course. And all my contact information is on there. And I'll be more than willing to share anything with you.